I want to shift the focus now from the White Sox side of things over to the North side because there's a ton of expectations, and I've talked about this enough. And really, for the first time in a long time, the Cubs should be considered realistic World Series favorites. Favorites, not threats, but the team that should win the World Series, according to a lot of baseball minds, it will be the Cubs this year. And there's a lot of reasons why they're the favorites. This offseason, they hit on a lot of big-time free agent signings. They made a big-time deal that allowed them to bring in Ben Zobrist. They traded Starlin Castro for Adam Warren, freed up a lot of cap space. They were able to invest money in Zobrist. And then they won the Jason Hayward sweepstakes with a couple of opt-outs in the 8-year, $184 million contract for the 26-year-old outfielder. Then all of a sudden, you add that to a team that already had Chris Bryant, who had 99 RBIs, Anthony Rizzo, who had 101 RBIs, Addison Russell, who was brought in via trade and is only 22 years old, and he's projected to be one of the best defensive infielders in baseball. Probably one of the best shortstops in baseball on the defensive side. A lot of people are considering him to win a Gold Glove this year, and that's something to be excited about. I know he's going to improve on the offensive side of the ball. I expect his power numbers to go up. I mean, I remember watching a game Len and JD did on WGN or whatever it was, and they did an over-under of the amount of home runs Addison Russell was going to hit in 2016, and they were putting it at like 18 or 19, and then as they said that, Addison Russell hit a home run. So that's something that is really exciting to me, is that the development of Addison Russell, not only defensively, because we know he's going to be fantastic defensively, he's got it with the glove, but on the offensive side, Joe Madden even said that he's not going to worry about batting him ninth. He's going to usually bat the pitcher ninth now because Russell doesn't need some protection. You know, last year they used him in the 9 hole so then they could roll over to the top of the order a little bit differently. So it was just a little different approach. It worked in his mind. I mean, I don't know how much of a difference it made on the overall wins and losses, but Russell spent a lot of time in the 9 hole, and that's going to change this year. And I feel like he's going to be kind of an X factor in the Cubs lineup. You have production. You know you're going to get production from the top of the order guys, especially Hayward, Fowler, Zobrist, Rizzo, Bryant, Schwarber, add in Addison Russell and all the production he brings, and it's just an extra plus. So the infield looks like this. It's going to be Chris Bryant at third, Addison Russell at short, Ben Zobrist at second, and Anthony Rizzo at first. Now that's pretty solid up the middle with Russell and Zobrist. Then you go behind the plate, Montero, David Ross, Kyle Schwarber. David Ross on the last year of his contract. Miguel Montero, I think he has 2 years, including this year. And then you have Kyle Schwarber. And Schwarber apparently is going to be Jason Hamill's personal catcher, which I think is going to be great because that means you can implement Soler into the outfield and that lineup's just going to be deadly. But Schwarber's got a lot of work to do defensively at the catcher spot, so I'm not sure how much more often he's going to be there than he is in, well, obviously he's going to play left more, but I'm not sure how often he's going to be at catcher. And honestly, the best Cubs lineup is with Schwarber at catcher. But his he's just so bad defensively that it just hurts them. So he's going to be in left field. And is he really that bad in left field? No. Yeah, he's probably going to be a below average, but really you have Fowler / Hayward, whoever is going to be manning center he's going to help him out. He doesn't have to cover a lot of ground. He's just got to be able to make the routine plays, maybe make a couple over the shoulder grabs. He looked good in spring training. I'm talking about Schwarber out left. He has good reads on the ball. You can tell he's improving. So that's something very encouraging. I wrote a piece for Cubby's Crib of Fansided, and I talked about how the Cubs lineup is good enough to carry them to the World Series, but it wouldn't be necessarily carrying them if their rotation is so entirely solid the way it's structured. Jake Arrieta is their number one. And let's talk about Jake Arrieta a little bit, because last year he threw 248 innings, which is a buttload. And I don't think he had more than 160 something before this season. He really came on strong in 2014. He opened a lot of people's eyes because before that, he was kind of a work in progress and he looked to be a failed prospect in Baltimore. But once the Cubs were able to acquire him and Pedro Strop for Steve Clevenger and Scott Feldman, Jake Arrieta kind of turned his career around. Kinda. He only won a Cy Young last year and won a winner-take-all wildcard game. So the point is, the Cubs are definitely going to watch Arrieta's numbers this year, and for them to be able to do that, they're going to need to rely on their depth in the staff because they have John Lester as their 2, Jason Hamill, John Lackey was a huge signing in the offseason, and Kyle Hendricks filling it out. And then below that, it'll be Adam Warren, Trevor Cahill, Clayton Richard, and Travis Wood as potential guys who can fill in if anybody gets hurt, if there's a spot start that needs to be made, or if somebody just needs to take a 6th day off. They're there for you. And I think that goes a long way. And the Cubs this offseason made it a point that they were going to keep 8 relievers. The 25-man roster's finally set, and the injury to Javier Baez kind of influenced who made the team. Caesar wasn't projected to be on the Cubs 5-man roster. He's out of options. So if he didn't make the team, he would have had to pass through waivers to go to AAA, and I doubt he would have made it that far because the team probably would value him in a certain extent. But Caesar made the squad, and they, as I mentioned, they wanted to keep 8 relievers, and it was pretty much a 2-guy battle. They cut Rex Brothers early in the spring, a lefty that they signed as a free agent, and I was kind of surprised at that because it was so early, but apparently he was just so terrible that he was just not even worth the trouble of keeping. So it came down to 2 players, Neil Ramirez and Spencer Patton. Spencer Patton has options available, while Neil Ramirez doesn't. Also, Neil Ramirez is coming off a major shoulder/abdomen injury that kept him out all of last year. Ramirez showed tremendous value in 2014 as this late inning dominant reliever. 97, 99 mile an hour fastball with a devastating slider. Acted as the setup man for the most part, and he was pretty much automatic. But unfortunately, the injury bug caught up to him, and now his velocity's down 90 to 93 miles an hour. So that's kind of concerning, but the electric slider's still there. And I think the Cubs don't want to give up on him yet. And why should they, given his dominant past? But they were able to free up some roster spots for him. The 8 bullpen pieces allow depth to the pitching staff, which is a good thing, allows the starters to not have to go as many innings. So keeping Ramirez was great. We'll see how he develops as the year progresses. We'll see. We're going to have to monitor his velocity as the season goes on. But that's something to keep in mind. Tommy La Stella made the team. That shouldn't be any surprise, but he was hurt, and he was kind of battling with Shane Victorino, Minori Kawasaki, and a couple others. But in the end, it was La Stella who won the job. Despite his injury, La Stella looks really good in the spring. I mean, I think he was hitting over 400 his last 7 games or so that he's been healthy. So that's encouraging, but he's not going to be one of those everyday pieces, but he's valuable in the sense that he can play third, he can play second, and he's a big-time contact hitter. Guy doesn't strike out very much, but again, spent a lot of time last year on the injury report, and that kind of sucked because you needed a guy like him in the lineup as a pinch hitter or a spot start for Bryant at third where he can maybe move to the outfield for whatever reason. It's just nice to have him there. He just has to be healthy. Now for Kawasaki, I liked him a lot, and he didn't do anything wrong this spring. It's just Joe Madden even mentioned the only thing that it lacked was opportunity for the guy. So I expect him to be up sometime throughout the season, but until then, we're just going to have to watch his crazy dances on maybe AAA videos. But yeah, I'm sure this guy is going to be up soon. But overall, I wanted to kind of wrap this Cubs conversation up by saying, yes, they will win the World Series, and they will do it by winning the Central. And I think it's going to be competitive, very, very competitive in the Central this year. I think the Cardinals are very talented still. I think they have enough to even win the Central, but I think the Cubs are just better than them, period. I think they did enough in the offseason. They made enough trades, and they're flexible enough financially to be able to make trades by the deadline to address specific needs. And I think that's kind of a key here, because if the Cubs really do want to pursue another top starter, maybe Salazar Carrasco's available, maybe somebody else comes up, and you want to be able to move someone, they have pieces to do that. Vogelbach, pieces in the minors. You don't necessarily have to give up Soler, though I think you're going to have to if you're going to pick up a guy like Salazar. But for the most part, you got guys to work with in the minor leagues that are expendable, to be honest, in order to acquire a big-time starter or even a big-time reliever. So nothing's out of the question for the Cubs there. But with the Cardinals, they have depth in the outfield despite losing Jason Hayward. Tommy Pham's got a ton of power. Randall Grichuk's really good. Steven Piscotty's really good. They still have some pieces there. Matt Holliday, will, hopefully for them, will be healthy more than he was last year. Overall, their lineup is solid, and their rotation's good enough to compete in the National League. Michael Wacha, Adam Wainwright, Jaime Garcia, Carlos Martinez, they're good. That's a good team. The Pirates, though, I don't know if the Pirates are good enough. I think they'll be competitive. Maybe they'll be in a wild card hunt, but it will surprise me if they come close to the top spot in the division. I mean, they lost Pedro Alvarez. They lost AJ Burnett. They replaced Alvarez with John Jaso. Not very good. Made a couple moves to bolster their rotation. It's not good enough. This season with the Pirates, I just feel like they're meh. You know, I feel like they're good enough to kind of compete, but at the same time, I don't think they're good enough to compete with the Cubs and Reds and the Cardinals. So that maybe they surprise some people. Yeah, their outfield's very good. McCutchen, Polanco, Marte. I'll take that all day, every day. But at the same time, their infield's not very good. Rotation's not super good besides Garrett Cole and Francisco Liriano. Mark Melanson's really good, though. He's dominant in the back end of the bullpen. I don't think the Cubs ever were able to generate any kind of offense against him last year. He's a problem. But at the same time, it's just, you put it all together, I don't see anything. I don't see the Pirates competing as much. The 2 wild card spots, one is going to go to the Cardinals, and then the other one is just, it's up for grabs because I feel like the Giants in the West are the team to beat there. The Dodgers, Diamondbacks, they're going to be in it. Nationals, Mets are going to be in it. So Pirates are going to have to battle. I feel like it's going to be Cardinals, Mets in the wild card, with the Nationals winning the East, Cubs in the Central, and the Giants in the West. The Giants had a really good offseason. And if there's going to be a team that's going to challenge the Cubs this year for an NLCS crown, it's going to be the Giants. Their rotation's stacked. Their offense is very strong. And I don't know. That's the team. That's the team I'm kind of worried about throughout the season, more so than the Cardinals, despite the fact that they're in their own division. I'll probably have to eat those words because the Cardinals always turn out to be this crazy team that really dominates. And no matter what happens to them, no matter how many injuries they have, no matter the players they lose, like Albert Pujols, who was just coming off one of the best seasons ever, and they just said bye-bye, they always have someone. And quite frankly, that's what the Cubs are trying to do right now. They're trying to run the organization like the Cardinals. And so far, so good. Hey, I can't complain with a ahead of schedule NLCS appearance. But I think this year they did a tremendous job of addressing specific issues relating to the strikeout rate, bringing in contact-savvy guys, Ben Zobrist, Jason Hayward, to address that ridiculous 1,500 strikeout team total that they had last year. And then also another issue is their ability to drive in runs. They were in the bottom 3 in the entire MLB of being able to score with runners in scoring position per game. So that's something that they needed to do. And I feel like this lineup, with the addition of Schwarber in a full season, also Jorge Soler as your 4th outfielder and possibly first bench option. I mean, Soler could be a middle-of-the-order bat for a lot of teams this year, but it's just crazy the amount of depth the Cubs have, and I feel like it's going to be enough. I feel like the Cubs, this is the year, guys. This is it. I'm all in. This rotation's solid. They have enough players that they can take and distribute if they need to address positions of need by the deadline. Theo Epstein has built a team that essentially had nothing, no value. Their prospects were garbage. Their team was going nowhere. And it was obvious this entire process, going back to 2012, that first agonizing season that Epstein took over, they lost 101 games. And then the following season, they lost 96 games. And it was just like, okay, wow, this sucks. But we know we have this vision, and we believe in the vision. And eventually it's going to take shape. 2014 happened, and there was a lot of positives. We saw the emergence of Jake Arrieta. We saw Jeff Samardzija be traded for Addison Russell. And there were 73 games won. It was the most the Cubs have won in a long time. That was something positive to build on. And we went into 2015 thinking, okay, it's a let's see what happens kind of year. but suddenly all these stars emerged in Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant. They all contributed. Addison Russell came up. It was just, everything came into motion, and it was just beautiful. And they won 97 games, competed against the top teams in baseball who spent all this money, had all these pieces, and here are the Cubs who had Dexter Fowler as one of their oldest players. It was just insane. I'm so excited for the baseball season to start. Just knowing that there's going to be baseball from now until October is just so comforting for me. Every single day of the week, you could just, in the back of your mind that there's a baseball game going on, and you just kind of feel good about it. You know that something's going on that you pay attention to, even if you are at work or sitting in your office and just hating life. You know that guys more talented than you are playing the game that they love, that you love, and you're not. But I mean, at the same time, it's like awesome. You know what I mean? Baseball is awesome. And I'm so happy that it's back. I can't wait.